Sometimes no matter what you do, you just can't get good lighting. Early enough in the morning, the sun coming through the windows over here just blinding me, and over here it makes it look like I'm in some sort of blue light overcompensating. That's why I got all the curtains, right, in the way, trying to make it so at least I can get a halfway decent picture. This is my third attempt at this particular one. I'm getting a little frustrated with it. I'm not one of these people that want to spend an inordinate amount of time on one of these things. I'm not trying to win a prize here or make a bunch of money. I'm just trying to share with you some stuff in my collection that I really enjoy and hope to spark some interest in the old school game systems that are out there. This particular module is also frustrating. It always has been to me. This is one of the early first set. If you look here at the back, you can see here is the original rule book, and then these were the first set of modules that came out when they first put them out. You got Trolls in the Misty Mountains, Sheila's Lair, Dagger Lad, and Bree sitting back here. This was one of those first year releases, and I don't know, the writers and the designers were still trying to get their feet on the ground with this endeavor, and we're struggling with the backstory material. It's actually fairly complicated in some aspects. It's also a bit of an older school. It would be quite at home in some of the swords and sorcery stuff of the 70s, Conan the Barbarian's, setting kind of thing. The Dunlendings themselves, I've always put them in the category as either the early Picts or Celts, or maybe the early Scots, and the aspect of their lifestyle and aggressive, somewhat still primitive yet developing culture mindset. That means that they're quite combative, quite suspicious, easily roused up, and have no qualms about going to war against their neighbors or anybody else for that matter. It's part of their cultural heritage and what they do. That aspect, it's never been 100%. It's been discussed a lot over the years, and especially on the various social medias that we have, but nobody's ever got decided solidly whether or not the Dunlandings are connected to the Dean Codus, or if they're not surviving descendants of some branch of the Dean Codus. The Dean Codus is an even more primitive human society that predated the settling of Gondor. These were the men and women who lived in and around the White Mountains and the southern plains of Rohirrim and the southern Misty Mountains to the east, the west, and the south, that we see the Dunlandings, the areas that the Dunlandings occupy today. The bulk of which, this is where the army of the undead that Aragorn goes and rallies to help save Gondor at the end of the War of the Ring. Well, that's the Dean Codus, or their descendants, the ones who failed to uphold their oath, their holy oaths, whatever, end up becoming oath breakers. That being said, we're still dealing with aspects of that culture. This is why there's a lot of ghost stuff going on in here. This is a lot of ghostly undead kind of thing, encounters. In part because you're dealing with the shades of these fallen warriors who have yet to, their spirits have not been released to move on, and they're waiting for that day, which is a long way off still. In this case, even the backstop is a bit complicated because we're dealing with an area of Middle Earth that's set in some of the more remoter sections, and it's not 100% clear as to exactly where. I mean, I've read through it twice now in the last few days, trying to narrow that down, and it could be that I'm just not seeing it. Anyway, the first one is the adventures at Minas Anghen. High in the mountains west of the mining town at Coerba, Aragon, the solitary tower rises above the stud of trees. Locals traveling to Minas Anghen, the Long Eye Tower, home of the Seer Niniel, the eccentric old recluse, climbing the mountain. But I think it's either the very western edge of the White Mountains, somewhere past where the Helm's Deep will eventually be built, or it's on the southern side of the White Mountains to the far west of Gondor's westernmost holdings, or right on the outskirts of it. I'm not quite sure of it. Anyway, the first adventure is basically dealing with a number of different issues. This old man created this very eccentric looking castle up on a very steep section of the mountains, very difficult to get to. Eventually, he recruited some servants, and then they became seers, and then they all died, and then some other people come along, and then some of them died, and it just gets kind of convoluted. And there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of interesting stuff, but as to why a party of adventurers would go here is still a bit vague to me. A lot of good information, but not so much pre-work for that. It says here the task is journeys to Minas Anghen tend to revolve around one of the three objectives. One, to discover the secret Niniel's ghost and the nature of her abode. Two, to clear the site of Coerba's band, making trade safe again on the road in the canyon below. Or three, to find and loot the treasure of the Seers. None of these aims are particularly easy, although the latter is unquestionably the most dangerous and profitable. So, starting the players, Minas Anghen is about 10 miles or 7.5 as the Coerba flies east of the village at Coerba, cabled Aragon up a twisting mountain road marked with numerous stone bridges and retaining walls. About 10 families reside in the village. So, these villagers build a mountain village. The path and the road to get up to it is fairly complex, considering how few people live up here. It tells you that it was built a long time before that, and is some sort of, we're back to that where I get a little tongue-tied trying to explain it. The original people are dead, but they were seers, and then a group of people came in who basically, it's a thieves guild, if you will. The jugglers something or another, and the idea is these people train thieves that will go out to all the urban environments all over the western, southwestern, Middle Earth, and do their trade, and they all belong to this guild, and eventually, occasionally come back here for either additional training to train others or to bring some loot. And then there's this young lady who's either a ghost or she's a spirit, or she is a crazy woman with some power that's inhabiting the area. Anyway, so you got encounters. There's one, Niniel's ghost, Coerba and Sentinel, the bandits band, Coerba, Sentinel, Herod bandits, Earl. See, I mean, it's just a lot going on here in a short period of time. Number two, the second adventure is Adventure at the Seven Stones. High Mountain Valley. Basically, what we're dealing here is remnants of the Dean Codus, and there's, once again, some ghosts or spirits. The way I understand it, some priest, a goodly priest, dies, and they're not quite 100% clear on how he died, becomes a ghost. And he still feels the need to look after his people, and yet he understands that by doing so, he's basically feeding off their essence. So he hatches this plan because he doesn't want to hurt the people that he used to look after. He brainwashes them into basically bringing him sacrifices. So they go out and hunt random people wandering the road and drag them up here and sacrifice them to the ghost, who then feeds on their essence. And your group's either been shanghaied and one of your members is going to be sacrificed, or you've been tapped by some local slumberer to go up here and deal with it. Or your adventurers heard of this tomb and the potential loot that's in it and want to go up there and get paid. Right? And here's the task. The sojourn to Sedum is a quest to either A, cleanse the befouled holy pool, or 2, loot the treasure of Phobos. Both of these missions are complicated by the presence of 2 other explorers, Hedrick and Jessica Carell, who frequent the valley and cover the contents of the Eerie Stone Mound, as well as the dead priest, which they don't bother to bring up. You know, it seemed to me they were trying to go for a whole lot of options, a lot of A, B, or C kind of things to give you plenty of opportunities to stick around and have multiple adventures based off of a handful. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not very clear as to exactly, in my mind, what it is they're trying to achieve. And then we got the third venture at Hogel Tarzan, mountains north of Tarlek's Neck, a steep battle of blue granite, blah, blah, blah. Nice picture with a guy, the dead king guy sitting on a throne, right? Something about seven cave mouths, or they call them the seven phantom doors, Dunlanding priests, after the oath breaking, blah, blah, blah. Undead Amorous, scouts, lots of interesting, weird stuff. Find the task here. And the task. Ventures into the Hogel Trevor, typically the missions of 1, rescue, 2, looting, 3, slaughter. Pretty straightforward. Particularly local authorities wish to put an end to the bizarre disappearances that have been occurring near the Phantom Doors. Rewards for such adventures are great, but they are also great dangers. So, there you go. Probably one of the most convoluted ready-to-run adventure modules I've ever encountered. I have encountered a few others, but they're rare. And this is one of those others. If you can find it, there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of good stuff. But it's definitely on the outer edge of what's normally considered typical for MERP. But it's a variety, right? There you have it.